All right, so here we're back in the after hours with Jeffrey Hirsch. Now, Jeff, we didn't mention it in the first part of the segment, but you've decided to partake in a nice, tasty beverage with us. What are
Yes,
you drinking?
I'm having the Miller Lite, the fine Pilsner. It's actually a German Pilsner, believe it or not.
Is it? I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
I think it's made using the same purity laws, the old 1512 German purity laws. It's actually a fine beer. Everyone thinks it's a light beer, but it's just a fine Pilsner.
Is
But
that on
that's
the label,
my
Jeff? Is that
it's a casual
has a
beer.
history on the label?
How much are they paying you
I,
to endorse it on the show?
I don't know. I grew
Couple
up with all those
cases.
taste great, less filling commercials, so
oh, they're fantastic. How can you beat it?
Uh,
I think it's a good beer. But I drink all kinds of beers, but that's what I grabbed for this.
you were promising me that you were going to drink some Labatt Blue in
I was
honor of.
looking for it, man. I couldn't find it, and I got hung up here at my office location because the
That's
traffic
all
was
right.
building on a bridge. So I promise you. You know what? Next
So
time we'll have a good Canadian beer together.
there you go. And so you're located out in New York. Where are you?
I'm in White Plains right now. It's in Westchester County, about 30 miles or so north of Manhattan.
Now, John, you had a girlfriend that was out there, didn't you?
I did in Larchmont. I went to school in the U.S. and yeah, she flew me home for Thanksgiving, and I went there in the summer. It was fantastic, great spot.
Where did you go
And
to school?
I went to Ohio State University, or the Ohio State University.
The Ohio State University. Yeah. So
Yep,
was that Buckeye?
uh, Buckeye for life. Yeah,
Yeah.
great football
Yeah.
team. Should compete for the national championships. I don't know if you follow college football, but if you want to talk, I can talk all day long.
I am not the college football guy. My buddy's got twin boys. One's at Indiana and one's at Virginia Tech. So he's been doing some big time college football with his sons going to visit him.
I think both of those schools are in the top 25 right now, if I'm not mistaken.
I
I know
think I just
Indiana
saw
just cracked it.
a post from Keith that Indiana was in the top 25 for the first time in, like, I don't know, a long time or something.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I went with a bunch of buddies to the Indiana Ohio State game. That was the opening of the college football season, and it was amazing. I mean, they had F1 fighter jets fly over for a Thursday night game, which was
That's great.
fantastic. But it's a lot of fun, and Virginia Tech's a good school. They
Yes,
produce some great NFL players. Jets or Giants, Jeff?
I'm a Giants guy.
Okay,
Sadly,
okay.
I
Your
grew
thoughts
up
on
in
the QB
grew up in the
situation?
Joe Pisarcik era, if you remember him.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
You know what that is?
I'm more of the Phil Simms era.
Well, I'm a Phil Simms guy too, but do you remember the famous play with Joe Pisarcik when it had like 6 seconds left in the game and all he had to do was kneel on it and he like stood up and threw a pass and Herm Edwards picked it off when he was on the Eagles and
Herm
scored
Edwards,
down and they
the
beat him.
head coach, the old head coach of the Jets.
Yeah,
Wow.
he was the D-back
Okay.
for the Eagles back then.
Oh wow, wow. So that was when was that? Like 70s?
I think so. I mean, I was a kid. I was a little kid. Like I was
Right,
in elementary school or something.
right. Okay, so it's Giants and Yankees or Mets.
Yankees.
It has to be. You're from White Plains. You can't support the Mets,
No, I'm
right?
actually I'm
Right.
actually from Jersey on the other side of the river. This is where the office is. But I've seen
Okay.
quite a few F1, F-16 flyovers at Yankee Stadium in October.
Sure, sure.
And
So,
Challenger, the Eagle.
Yeah.
but Jeff, you're a rugby guy, aren't you? You
Yeah,
used to play
I am.
rugby, right?
I played a lot of rugby, a lot of men's club rugby in my 20s, 30s, and early 40s.
You,
Wow.
you know that here in Toronto, we have our professional rugby league. We're in that England's-based top-tier
Right.
Super League, and they actually came over to Canada, and we have a team here in Toronto, and so any rugby fans can come up to Toronto and catch some pretty amazing rugby. You should come up one time, and we'll catch a game.
I would love to. We actually have a league in the state rugby league now that we went to. They're playing have like half a dozen or like 10 cities that they play in: Seattle, Denver. Rugby's coming around.
Oh
It's
yeah.
I assume you guys saw some of the World Cup.
We did. We did. I got up early because I have a 2-year-old son, and so I was watching some of the early matches, and there were some like great results, great upsets. The New Zealand South Africa game, New Zealand England game, and
Yep.
some of the other sort of and Japan also did really really well. It was actually pretty cool.
They have a pretty serious old boys population in Japan. A lot of expats as well as Japanese locals that play like old boys rugby.
Right.
What position did you play, Jeff?
I was a hooker,
Oh,
right
that's tough.
smack dab in the middle of the scrum.
That's tough. That's tough.
That's awesome. That's awsome.
So
Oh,
you're not
keep my
coming in at
neck
100.
close,
You're not
Patrick.
coming in at 150, are you? You're not a small
150
guy.
what?
On one leg, I guess, right?
On the scale, yeah. Maybe back in high school.
Good for you.
So let's talk some markets and actually now I wanted to actually ask you a little bit about your company because I mean you've been in business since 1967, but you ain't that old. I mean it was your
Yeah.
father Yale that started it all. What how did it all begin? What's the story? Give us a little history background here.
Oh, goodness. Well, my father was born in 1923. He is 96. He turned 96 last month.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
after World War II, where he got bounced around from school to school, ended up working in the officers club playing piano. He went to Brooklyn College on the GI Bill and got a degree in music. Tried to make it in the music and entertainment industry, and ended up working with his cousin, who's Sam Coslow, who's a songwriter and a movie producer back in the day. And Sam got burned in the market. I think he sold the publishing company to RCA for stock, and he lost money there. And he became a market student and started a service called Indicator Digest out of Palisades Park, New Jersey, back in 1961, and called on my father to run operations for him. So he spent several years there researching and running the business with Sam, and had this epiphany in '66 to go out on his own and take all of these market patterns, cycles, trends, indicators, and put them together in a calendar format so that he, as well as everybody else, could follow the market schedule along with their own, and created the Stock Traders Almanac and incorporated the business in '66, the year I was born.
Wow.
So then it
That's
led to
awesome.
newsletters. What's that?
That's awesome. And I mean, all these terms like Santa Claus rally or the January effect. These are all things that were originated through your services, right? In your books, right?
Yeah, I mean, January barometers, Yale's, and the best 6 months, and the Santa Claus rally. January effect is an old thing. It's different than the January barometer. It does get confused from time to time. But there's a lot of the seasonal patterns, and we've been big proponents of the 4-year cycle. Not that we invented it or discovered it, but we've been working it as much as anybody over the years, as well as all the monthly trading patterns and the options expiration stuff we were talking about, holiday trading patterns. There was a lot of these things that were out there that were sort of lore or old adages and things that we actually proved out or disproved and published and put into profitable use for ourselves and our readers and subscribers.
Right. Right. So I've been meaning to ask you, you also co-wrote the Commodity Trader Almanac, right?
Yes.
And I love these commodity cycles. And one of the things that I've, at least in the last few years, noticed was this seasonal pattern for like natural gas to rally into this winter season stuff. What's the history of that? Like, what do you, when it comes to natural gas, like what is it that has worked over time?
Historically, we've seen the low actually, more in the um, February period for gas and crude oil. We sort of get, things get switching over from the um, electricity, air conditioning running summer months where natural gas is used quite dramatically uh, to create electricity these days. So the
Right.
old, low point for us has been, that February low. Yeah, there's a fourth quarter run as well, but it's been that February low that's been tradable for us.
Right. And so over the last couple of years, when these rallies have been starting in November, December, we shouldn't overread into that, or there's no real historical basis for that.
There's some historical basis for it, but just be careful. If you're getting in now, it starts to turn over. I mean, the rally is it starts to move up fourth quarter and then begins to peak out at the end of the year and makes a low down there in February. So I'm not saying there's nothing left to it right here, but be prepared for the January break.
There's a January break there. It was
Is
interesting the way that was the optionsellers.com effect when there was that huge squeeze the other year on the upside in Nat Gas. What a show that was, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but it'll be interesting to see whether Nat Gas can pick up here a little bit. What else is when it comes to like commodities? What other really interesting patterns are there that you have identified is it something in grains or oil or gold? What is an effect
Copper
that you
copper has been one that I've found to be quite effective, where we see that December low point in um, in copper that's we've been able to trade pretty well, uh, and that's been one of the more consistent ones. That December low in copper through May.
and then it kind of rallies into the next couple months, the first quarter of the
Yeah,
year type of
that's
thing?
been one of the more consistent ones. Um,
Now,
oil
have you
has been,
noticed that does that also then influence copper stocks? So, like when you have
yeah,
a scenario like
exactly.
that, then you want to like buy the like Southern Coppers or the Freeport McMorans and kind of work with those types of stocks on the upside.
That's what we prefer to do. I am not a commodity trader, so we don't really um, actively get into the futures with these, but it's definitely something that's much more conducive for us using some of the ETFs. But Freeport and Southern Copper have been great trading vehicles for that copper trade for us. And unfortunately, there was a stock called Global Brass and Copper Holdings. You heard of that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it just got taken over like privately by some, I think, Swiss firm. So that one's no longer out there for us to, um, have our fun with because that was a good trade. It used to be BRSS if memory serves. So, but Southern Copper's always been a good one to
Have
trade that
you
with.
uh, have you tracked any of the bond cycles, and did you find anything in the bond markets that are interesting in terms of these seasonality patterns?
Yeah, I mean, even before we got into the whole commodity almanac stuff, the bond pattern has always been kind of inverse to the stock market. So when you got the worst 6 months, May through October in stocks, you kind of want to be in bonds, and that's part of our whole newsletter trading strategy. When we sell and when we get sell in May and go, we don't go away. We reposition in May, and we move in it. We sell out of our Dow, S&P, Nasdaq, and Russell 2000 ETFs, and we get into the bond ETFs as well as some other defensive sectors and some dividend paying things. So
Do you
yeah,
guys
bonds,
just go right into the longer duration ones, like you go like into a TLT and things like that?
TLT, but also the total aggregate bond index, the AGG. We picked up the BND. I mean, you could do some corporate stuff. What is it? The high yield one, the
Yeah, like the junk or the HYG type of thing.
HYG. Yeah, that's an option too. But we tend to put TLT, BND, and AGG in our tactical switching portfolio during the worst months.
Oh, there you go. And yeah, no, that's awesome. So, what else is new? Is there anything else we want to still cover, or what is interesting that you want to share with our listeners? Anything that we want to touch on?
Well, we are involved with a mutual fund these days, which
So
is
what's up with that?
well, it's called Probabilities Fund, and I am the chief market strategist of Probabilities Fund Management, the LLC that is the advisor to it. And I probably shouldn't go talking about performance and such, but
Just any of our listeners that are interested in learning more about it, make sure you reach out to Jeffrey
Yeah,
and learn more about it.
and we've been doing well this year, and I'm pretty pleased with the strategy review and the revamp that we did early this year and implemented. Um, but that's basically the culmination of everything. My partner there, Joe Childry, took one of the almanacs on a trip with him a bunch of years ago, back in the '90s, when he went to Africa for a safari from the firm that he was working with, and forgot his other reading material, and came back a convert, trend following convert, and started trading it for himself, then for his client accounts, and then he created a hedge fund which was up in '08 based upon the seasonal patterns in the Stock Traders Almanac. And now we help him and work with him to make it better. And that's where my focus is, not taking away from the almanac and the newsletter, but that's where I've been putting more focus on right now. And I think that's the future of things for us. And we are, accepting new accounts.
That's
Jeff, is that fund available for Canadian investors? I know that there's a little bit of
I'm
there's
not
a difference
sure you
between.
can get it so easily in Canada. You might have to do something with a U.S. account.
Okay,
Again,
so there,
if there's a whole bunch interest, we can see what we can do to make sure it's
no,
available.
for sure you can. So, Jeff, I wanted to leave it with this. You do the money shows all the time? Are you going to be at the Orlando Money Show in February?
Yes, that I am scheduled to be at.
Well, listen, I'm gonna be down there, so maybe what we should do is any of our listeners that want to maybe grab a beer with me and you,
Most definitely.
we should arrange a little market huddle meetup out in February out in Orlando and have a couple drinks. I think that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, have
I
you
think
been?
you guys, I think you guys are going to have to get it straight. You're going to be drinking German Pilsner, or you're going to be drinking a good Canadian lager, because
I don't think
Maybe,
that.
maybe we'll try
we
some
should get that
scotch when we're
covered.
down there.
Well, there you
You know
go.
what? That's a nice, that's a compromise I can live
Yeah,
with.
that's a good compromise. Have you been down
All
to
right.
the Orlando show yet, Patrick? Have you been down there?
I was down there for the AAII conference just now, but I haven't done
Okay,
the Orlando show on the Money Show yet, so it'll be my first time out there. Yeah.
cool. Well,
Yeah.
I can
I
find
look
us some
for.
place down there.
All right, sounds good. Well, look forward to it, Jeff. So listen, before we let you go, why don't you just quickly, once again, repeat to all of our listeners where they can find you and follow you, because you have a Twitter account, right? So just make sure
Yep.
you let everyone know where they can follow you on Twitter, and then
Almanac
where they
Trader.
can find.
Yep.
So Almanac Trader on Twitter, and otherwise, quickly just let them know where they can find you and give them one last plug.
It's very simple. The StockTradersAlmanac.com.
Perfect. All
Go
right.
check it out, people.
Check it out. All right,
It's
Jeff. It
Get
was
smarter.
and then get smarter. There you go, Jeff.
Get smarter.
It was such a pleasure having you on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll send you a link for it later on. But thanks for joining us and
Thank you,
enjoy the
Jeff.
rest of your weekend.
Yeah,
You
good
too.
talking to you.
Good talk, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
Take care.